Welcome back to Klepper's Corner, Today in History, the show where we grab a random calendar date, wring it out like a wet towel, and see what history's been leaking onto your rug. And January 11th, oh boy. January 11th is the day history looked at its schedule, saw absolutely no white space, and said, perfect. Let's cause religious uprisings, redefine astronomy, ignite revolutions, crash economies, start labor movements, invent insulin, invent Hollywood, and, just to balance things out, launch a national holiday about milk. This is a date so full of events, it feels like history was binge-writing fan fiction about itself. Let's get into it. Segment 1, the Nico riots, when sports fans almost toppled an empire. January 11th, 532, Constantinople, a city filled with marble, mosaics, and apparently sports fans so committed they make Philadelphia look like a yoga retreat. See, the Byzantine Empire had these two factions, the Blues and the Greens. They started as chariot teams, but by the 500s, they were basically political parties with matching jerseys. It's like if the Democrats and Republicans settled debates by racing horses while screaming obscenities instead of, well, actually instead of what? Never mind. On January 11th, the situation hit a point where even Justinian, the guy running the empire, said out loud, "This is fine," while the entire city figuratively and literally burned around him. 2 criminals survived a botched execution. The crowd declared divine mischief, and suddenly everybody remembered they hated the tax collector more than they hated each other. So the Blues and Greens united, which is like the Jets and the Patriots announcing they're now best friends because the IRS annoyed them. This was the day the riots escalated into what would become a week-long urban demolition derby. Entire neighborhoods burned. Hagia Sophia got flattened. And historians agree, if Justinian had apologized on January 11th, none of this would have happened. But emperors do not apologize. They build bigger churches. Segment 2, the first English lottery, when Elizabeth I invented gambling for civic duty. Fast forward to 1569, England, January 11th. Queen Elizabeth I had a navy to rebuild, harbors to repair, and a treasury emptier than a college kid's fridge. So she invented the national lottery. Yes, the first state lottery launched today. You could buy a ticket for 10 shillings, which in modern money translates to approximately, yeah, no thanks. And for incentives, cash prizes and immunity from arrest for almost everything except basically treason and murder. Imagine a modern option. Buy one lotto ticket, get one free Dunkin' Donut, and immunity from parking violations. But much like today's lotteries, hardly anyone actually won anything. But the government still walked away with the moral victory of, well, we tried. Segment 3, Alexander Hamilton's birthday. The guy who lied about his age before it was cool. January 11th also marks the birthday of Alexander Hamilton, founding father, treasury nerd, Broadway icon. But we have a problem. We don't actually know which year he was born. He claims 1757. His mom's probate papers say 1755. Which means the man canonized as a blazing intellectual prodigy might have actually been 2 years older and just fudged the math to sound impressive. The original, I'm actually younger than I look. Hamilton was basically the kid in class who says, "Oh yeah, I skipped a grade," when really he just didn't want to explain why he was taller than everyone. Regardless, he used January 11th to kick off a life that built the financial system, the Coast Guard, the National Bank, and the incredible historical precedent of never shutting up. Segment 4, the Taiping Rebellion, when a man declared himself Jesus' brother and China exploded. January 11th, 1851. Hong Xiuquan, after failing civil service exams enough times to qualify for a punch card reward, decides he is the literal younger brother of Jesus Christ. And because China never does anything halfway, this revelation starts the Taiping Rebellion, a conflict that kills up to 30 million people. Imagine telling your parents, "Hey, sorry about failing that test, but the good news is I'm founding a theocratic state." This was the day he declared the Taiping Heavenly Kingdom. It set off a civil war so enormous it reshaped China's demographics, weakened the Qin dynasty, and basically preheated the oven for every revolution China would have afterward. Segment 5. Insulin's first injection. When we save millions by fixing one terrible syringe. January 11th, 1922, Toronto. A 14-year-old named Leonard Thompson is injected with the first prototype of insulin, and it doesn't work at all. In fact, it gives him a painful abscess, which is not awesome when you're trying to cure diabetes. But this failure forced the scientists to refine the formula. And 12 days later, Thompson received the successful shot that changed human medicine forever. This is the rare scientific moment where, oops, that went terribly wrong, leads directly to, we just saved hundreds of millions of lives. The legacy is enormous. Insulin turned diabetes from a death sentence into something manageable. And every January 11th, we're reminded that sometimes history takes 2 attempts, or several million, to get things right. Segment 6. The surprising birth of Hollywood's Academy, when studio bosses tried to prevent unions. January 11th, 1927. Louis B. Mayer hosted dinner at the Ambassador Hotel, invites 36 industry figures, and says, essentially, what if we create a polite little organization to stop actors from unionizing? Thus, the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences was born, which, over time, became the Oscars, Hollywood's annual festival of expensive outfits, strategic coughing, and bold declarations like, "This is a celebration of cinema," while a CGI bear mauls someone in the Best Picture montage. This date marks the moment the movie industry tried to manage its image and accidentally invented prestige culture. January 11th, the day the Oscars were conceived, in the back room of a labor dispute meeting, which honestly tracks. Segment 7. Guantanamo Bay opens. A complicated legacy in one date. January 11th, 2002. The first detainees arrive at Guantanamo Bay. This is the moment America stepped into one of its most complicated, debated, and morally tangled chapters. The creation of a detention system outside the normal boundaries of U.S. law. Detainees were labeled enemy combatants, avoiding the protections of POW status. Court cases would follow, protests would become annual, and Guantanamo would evolve into a global symbol, debated for decades, questioned relentlessly, yet remaining open. Historically, January 11th is the date that forces us to confront the difficult truth that democracies often write their most controversial chapters not in moments of confidence, but in moments of fear. In conclusion, January 11th isn't just another winter day where most of us are trying to remember what our New Year's resolutions were. It's a sprawling, contradictory panorama of human behavior. It's fans overthrowing empires, scientists refining miracles, empires collapsing, countries being born, labor movements rising, Hollywood forming, and a world wrestling with the limits of its own ideals. January 11th is a reminder that history doesn't move in a straight line. It zigzags, swerves, crashes, flies, stumbles, rebounds, and occasionally invents a national holiday about milk. Thanks for joining us on this chaotic ride through the calendar. And remember, every date has a story, but some dates come with entire empires, revolutions, medical breakthroughs, and questionable lotteries attached. See you next time on Klepper's Corner Today in History.